What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Side Note News, where we break down real stories with real context, news, culture, politics, and everything in between. Right now, we are looking at a growing situation affecting thousands of Americans around the world, people who suddenly found themselves stranded overseas with no easy way home, flights canceled, airspace closed, borders tightening. For many travelers, what started as a vacation, a business trip, or a family visit, it's now turned into a race to get out of a region that is now at the center of a rapidly escalating global conflict. But before we get to the Americans now trying to find a way home, we have to talk about what triggered this situation in the first place, a rapidly escalating conflict that has already reshaped the balance of power in the Middle East. Tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States, they'd already been building for months. Iran-backed militant groups across the region had been launching attacks on U.S. military bases and commercial shipping lanes in the Middle East. American officials accused Iran of coordinating or supporting many of those attacks. Then things escalated from there. A series of strikes targeted key Iranian military infrastructure and leadership figures connected to those operations. And among the most shocking developments was the killing of Iran's supreme leader, the country's most powerful political and religious authority. The supreme leader holds ultimate control of Iran's military, intelligence agencies, and foreign policy. For decades, that position has been a central pillar of Iran's government. His death immediately sent shockwaves throughout the region. Iranian officials vowed what they called severe retaliation. Within hours, regional tensions surged, countries began closing portions of their airspace, airlines canceled flights, and governments around the world began warning their citizens to leave the region immediately. President Trump, he weighed in publicly on the escalating conflict during remarks this week.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
At the same time, Trump emphasized that the United States does not want a prolonged war.
Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer.
U.S. defense officials have confirmed that military assets in the region have been repositioned to protect American personnel and diplomatic facilities. The State Department also issued urgent travel alerts for Americans in several countries across the Middle East. But by the time those warnings were issued, thousands of Americans were already there. And that's when the travel chaos began. As the war escalated and airspace closures spread across the region, commercial flights began shutting down, airports suspended operations, airlines canceled flights, travelers suddenly found themselves stuck.
We've received so many emergency alerts. We've seen the missiles with our own two eyes. We've heard the explosions.
It was supposed to be a trip of a lifetime. 10 friends from Chicago came to celebrate Shekinah Lee's boyfriend's 27th birthday.
This is a place that he always wanted to come, so we came for his birthday.
But the last day, they scrambled to book extra nights at a hotel and hunkered down after they heard and saw missiles right outside.
We were supposed to fly out this morning. We are currently taking shelter.
Thousands of people that are being stuck, they're just stuck in all parts of Asia.
We met people from India, people from Africa, and they're wanting to get back home. And the representative was trying to explain to them that certain areas just can't be flown into because of so much unrest over there. So, but then you see people who are going about trying to make the best of it.
Now, according to U.S. officials, around 17,500 Americans have already returned home. About 6,500 travelers received assistance from the U.S. government, but more than 1,500 Americans are still requesting help getting out.
We're not being supported. There's no support from the American government. If there is, I haven't seen it plan to take this 8 hour drive across the border into Saudi and potentially get on a flight in Riyadh and fly. I know there's flights to Cairo, Egypt.
We are covering everything out of our pocket, our shelter, our food. Nothing has been covered by the government. I will say they're very great at keeping us calm in the situation, but as in expenses, we're covering everything on our own.
Some Americans have attempted to leave by driving across borders into neighboring countries where airports are still operating. Others are waiting for evacuation flights coordinated by the U.S. government. But those flights are limited and depend heavily on security conditions. At the same time, another group of Americans is facing an even more difficult situation. Some U.S. citizens are currently detained in foreign countries, including Iran and Russia. Advocacy groups warn that during periods of geopolitical tension, detained Americans can sometimes become bargaining chips in diplomatic negotiations. Experts refer to this practice as hostage diplomacy. In recent years, several Americans have been released through complex prisoner exchange agreements negotiated between governments, but those negotiations can take months or sometimes even years. When Americans are stranded overseas during a crisis, the U.S. government typically responds in several ways. First, the State Department works to communicate with travelers through the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, known as STEP. This allows officials to locate Americans in affected areas. Second, the government coordinates evacuation flights or charter flights when conditions allow. And third, U.S. embassies work with allied countries to open alternative travel routes. But evacuating thousands of people from a war zone is very complicated. You have airspace restrictions, security risks, and diplomatic negotiations. They all play a role, which means that for many travelers right now, the situation remains uncertain. Situations like this highlight how quickly global events can disrupt everyday life. One day, you're traveling abroad. The next day, a war erupts. Airspace closes, and suddenly the path home becomes far more complicated. Experts say that rising geopolitical tensions around the world means that these kind of travel disruptions may become more common in the future, which is why officials continue to urge Americans traveling overseas to stay informed and register with the State Department before international trips. For now, thousands of Americans are still working to get home safely, and as the situation in the Middle East continues to evolve, governments around the world are watching very closely. Before we go, if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts on these stories, and subscribe to Side Note News so you don't miss the next episode. We're covering the biggest stories across the country and across the world with real context and real reporting. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.